Stop. Before you pay another bill, before you log into your bank account, before you get in your car, there are 3 new rules quietly affecting millions of Americans right now, and almost nobody is talking about them. Not your bank, not your insurance company, not the evening news. Here's the uncomfortable part. You don't find out about these rules before they affect you. You find out after. After the notice arrives. After the transaction gets held. After the fine shows up in your mailbox. By the time you hear about it, the decision has already been made about your house, your money, or your driving record. And here's who this is happening to. Not scammers, not reckless people, not people breaking the law, retirees, veterans, homeowners, grandparents, people who did everything right for 40 years and the rules moved without telling them. Today, 3 of the biggest changes taking effect in 2026. One touches your home. One touches your money. One touches every mile you drive. But I want you to pay very close attention to rule number 2, because what I'm about to show you is completely legal, already happening right now in your state, and most seniors have absolutely no idea it exists. Stick around for that one. It changes how you should be looking at your own bank account starting today. Let's begin. Rule number 1. Your house may have already been inspected. Imagine this. You've lived in the same house for 25 years, maybe 30. You raised your kids there, paid off the mortgage, took care of it. Then a letter arrives. Your insurance company says your roof may be a problem. Your policy may not renew. Repairs may be required. So you ask the obvious question, who inspected my house? The answer might surprise you. Nobody. Nobody standing in your driveway. Nobody knocking on your door. Nobody climbing a ladder. The inspection may have happened from the sky, a drone, a satellite image, an AI system reviewing pictures and making decisions about your property without a single human ever setting foot on your lawn. Now here's where it gets uncomfortable, and this is the part almost nobody considers. We assume technology makes fewer mistakes than people. But what if the image is unclear? What if the software misidentifies a feature? What if your neighbor's roof gets confused with yours? When a human inspector is wrong, you can talk to them. Push back. Ask questions. When an algorithm is wrong, who exactly are you arguing with? What do you actually do if the machine got it wrong? That answer is coming, but first you need to understand why this is bigger than one roof. For decades, inspections meant a person showed up. Now inspections increasingly mean a system runs in the background and you only learn about the outcome, never the process. That shift matters more than people realize because the real danger here isn't being wrong. The real danger is being unaware that a decision was ever made about you at all. And that exact blind spot is about to show up somewhere far more personal, your bank account. Because if an algorithm quietly reviewing your roof feels unsettling, wait until you hear what a very similar system can do to your money. And unlike your roof, this next one can lock you out of cash you need today. Rule number 2. The money freeze. Most seniors never saw coming. Let's talk about something personal, not investments, not your portfolio, your actual money. The cash sitting in your account right now that pays your bills, covers your prescriptions, keeps the lights on. Now imagine waking up and discovering you can't touch it. Not because you were hacked, not because you made a mistake, because a system became suspicious of you. You open your banking app. Something's wrong. You call. You wait, you explain. And then you hear the 4 words nobody wants to hear. Your transaction is under review. Maybe you were helping a grandchild with tuition, paying a contractor, buying a car. Completely legal, completely normal. But normal for you and normal for an algorithm are not the same thing. The system doesn't know your intentions, it only sees patterns. And in many cases, once a flag is triggered, account holders have reported being given as little as a 15-day window to verify the activity before further restrictions apply. Sit with that for a second. 15 days to prove a legitimate transaction is legitimate, while the money you need for rent, medication, or a family emergency sits frozen. Here's why this hits older Americans harder than anyone else. Retirement changes financial behavior. You downsize, you move money, you help your kids, you make a large one-time purchase. These are ordinary life events, but to an automated monitoring system, ordinary life can look like a red flag. And here's the part that should concern everyone watching. Most people are preparing for scams. Almost nobody is preparing for procedural delays. They're watching for criminals, not for the systems now sitting quietly between them and their own money. To be clear, fraud prevention matters. Protecting seniors from criminals matters. But a protective system can still create real painful consequences for the people who least expected it. And this is exactly why "I'll deal with it when it happens" is the most expensive sentence you can say to yourself right now. Because notice the pattern forming. Rule 1 wasn't about a bad homeowner. Rule 2 isn't about bad banking behavior. These aren't stories about wrongdoing. They're stories about people who simply didn't know the environment had already changed beneath them. And if you think that's unsettling, wait until you hear rule number 3. Because this one isn't about your house, and it isn't about your bank. It's about something nearly every American over 55 does every single day without a second thought: driving. And the penalty doesn't show up until the trip is already over. Rule number 3. The driving trap that's catching good drivers. Quick question. When's the last time you actually reread your state's driving laws? Be honest. Most people haven't. Not because they're careless, but because they assume they already know them. And that assumption is exactly why this rule is catching so many good drivers off guard. The most dangerous thing on the road right now isn't speeding. It's believing nothing has changed since you learned to drive. Take move-over rules. For years, most drivers associated them almost entirely with police, ambulances, fire trucks. Simple, memorable. But in many areas, the scope has quietly expanded, which means situations that used to feel routine now call for a different response than the one your instincts were trained on decades ago. Here's the psychological trap. People don't usually break rules on purpose. They follow the version of the rule they remember, the one that's been correct for 40 years. But habits don't update themselves just because the law did. Now add speed cameras into the mix and this changes everything. Because a camera doesn't use discretion. It doesn't know you've driven safely for 4 decades. It doesn't evaluate intent. It measures, records, and issues a penalty, and the human conversation that used to happen on the side of the road is gone. The camera doesn't explain anything to you. The mailbox does. Weeks later, after the moment is already over and there's nothing left to explain yourself to. Which brings us to the lesson hiding inside all 3 of these rules. The biggest financial threats in 2026 aren't loud. They're not dramatic. They're silent until suddenly they're not. Until suddenly there's a bill, a notice, a restriction you didn't see coming. The bigger story, nobody is talking about. If you've stayed with me this far, you've probably noticed something. Insurance, banking, driving, three completely different industries telling the exact same story. America is shifting into an era where decisions happen before conversations do. It used to be a person inspected your roof, a banker called you, an officer pulled you over and talked to you. Now, a drone observes, an algorithm flags, a camera records. The process runs first. The explanation, if you get one at all, comes later after the outcome is already locked in. That's the real shift, and most people haven't fully clocked it yet, which means the country is quietly splitting into two groups: the people who stay informed and the people who find out only after the consequences already arrived. That gap is widening every single month, and the cost of being on the wrong side of it is rising right along with it. So let me leave you with this. The biggest financial risk facing seniors in 2026 isn't inflation. It isn't the stock market. It isn't even taxes. It's information. Specifically, the information you don't have yet. Nobody ever lost their roof to a rule they understood. Nobody ever lost access to their own money over a 15-day window they knew was coming. Nobody ever got blindsided by a camera enforcing a law they'd actually read. People don't lose to the rules. They lose to the rules they never knew existed. And here's the part I need you to actually sit with. Somebody you love is living inside this gap right now and has no idea. A parent one letter away from an insurance surprise. A spouse one transaction away from a 15-day freeze. A neighbor one ordinary drive away from a fine that shows up 6 weeks later with no warning at all. They won't find out from the news. They won't find out from their bank. They will only find out from someone who already knows, and right now, that's you. So here's what happens next. Subscribe right now, because every week we go find the rule changes, the silent updates, and the hidden risk that mainstream coverage doesn't get to until it's already too late for the people it affects most. Then comment below one simple thing. Which rule actually shocked you? The drone? The 15-day freeze? Or the camera that doesn't care how long you've been driving? I read every single comment, and your answer might be the exact thing that warned somebody else in time. And finally, send this to one person over 55 right now. Not later. Now, while it's open. Because the most expensive mistakes in 2026 won't be made by careless people. They'll be made by good people who simply found out one letter, one freeze, one fine too late. Don't let that be you. And don't let it be someone you love. I'll see you in the next one, where I'm going to show you exactly how to check in under 5 minutes whether any of these 3 rules already apply to you.